Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining RCI's Boost Your Business series with our introductions to the union workshops. So really pleased that we have many of you who are very interested in learning more about the unions and really believing in and taking the next step on becoming a signatory. And so that's what this workshop is about. And before I forget, I want to just remind everybody, we are recording this session, so hopefully everybody's okay with that as well. We have a dynamic speaker panel designed for you today and also on Thursday morning as well, which has two different topics. And but first, let me just say I'm Juan Garrett, Executive Director of Riverside Center for Innovation. I believe our colleagues, Judy McNeil, the Director of the Diversity Business Resource Center, is here. And one of our team leads in the office is Adam Gerard. He's also in the on the RCI staff. And for some of you, you know, we're working hard in the construction industry, trying to get many disadvantaged entrepreneurs on contracting opportunities. And as we know, over the next 2020 through to probably the next 4 years or so, economic recovery is going to be key and important. And especially here in Pittsburgh, we're one of those regions. And we're, as you can imagine, the president came to announce a $2 trillion infrastructure package. Infrastructure to some has different meanings. However, for our point of view, infrastructure talks about everything in the construction industry, from concrete to bridges to internet connections and things like that. And for a new economy, that's what infrastructure is when we're talking about technology. So for those who are not members of Riverside Center for Innovation, please register at the Diversity Business Resource Center. I think many of you are, but if you are not, that email address is dbrcpittsburgh.org and click join, and you'll be really thrilled you did, because we want to be able to announce to you the various contracting opportunities that are coming in the pipeline down the road, and some of these really key and important workshops that we have in this Boost Your Business series. And one of the projects that we're really heavily focusing on is this Lower Hill development. This Lower Hill development is going to be a 10-year project. That's just one. We have the airport project we're working really heavily on as well. There's another project, Project Cares, and there's several other projects that we have in the pipeline today. But as you can imagine, with who knows how much money is going to be running into the Pittsburgh region in the future. But we want to gear you up for that. And to be a player in some of these projects, you need to considerably becoming a union signatory. We're not trying to force you into anything, but we're here to have open conversations with the union reps and this distinguished panel that we have today. So with that being said, I want to just introduce you to the people on the panel for today. Is Mr. Dave D'Aquilente. He's with the Masters Builders Association of Pittsburgh, Western Pennsylvania. Mr. DeWitt Walton, the A. Philip Randall Institute. Mr. Dave Plutt, Keystone Mountain Lakes Carpenters Training Fund. And Mr. Bill Brooks and Jason Markovich, Laborers Local Union 373. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Dave D'Aquilente, and Dave is going to do a quick presentation as well. We're saving questions. You can put them in the chat and we could go along, but we're saving about 15 to 20 minutes at the end of this presentation for questions and answers as well. Thank you. Dave?
Good morning, everyone, and thank you to Juan and Judy for coordination and collaboration on this, as we've been talking about putting some programming together over the last few months. I do appreciate everybody joining us this morning, and as Juan said, really looking forward to talking about the advantages and the resources available within the unionized construction market, and certainly from our perspective as a contractor association. So I'm very excited to be with you all this morning. I think, as Juan said, we've got a great panel that represents different aspects of the union construction industry, and I think we'll be able to give you a really well-rounded perspective on it, some information, and as Judy mentioned, this is an open and honest conversation, so we're hopeful that the questions you may have, will be meaningful, and that we can help give you the honest, real answers for what's best for your business moving forward. So I'm going to share my screen here and get in. I'm the only one with slides this morning because nobody wants to look at me for very long, so let me put these up. Okay. So as Judy and Juan mentioned, we're going to talk about becoming a signatory contractor and what that might mean for you, your business, some of the benefits, risks, obligations, and then from a process standpoint, DeWitt, Walton, Dave Plutt, Jason Markovich, we'll talk about a little bit more from the union and workforce development and the training side. So in terms of the history of the Master Builders Association, we are significantly beyond senior citizens, if you will, from an organizational standpoint, right? We were founded in March 19th of 1986. A lot has changed in terms of, the world, the United States, Western Pennsylvania, construction, but a lot remains the same. Our purpose at founding was to represent contractors in a unified approach in terms of organized labor, negotiations, labor relations, to promote the quality and professionalism of our industry and our contractors. And we've got a long history of labor and organized labor in Western Pennsylvania. Many of the international unions were formed here in Pittsburgh or have roots here. You may be familiar with maybe some not so glamorous aspects of labor history in Western Pennsylvania, like the strike with Carnegie Steel and the Pinkertons from the Industrial Revolution. But things in the late 1800s, 1886, and the 1890s were really pushing forward from an organized labor standpoint to continue the push for a standard 8-hour workday. What those working conditions looked like beyond 8 hours. The founding of Labor Day ultimately came out of some events from 1886 as well. But in 1922, our organization had been around for a number of years, and we were a founding chapter in the Associated General Contractors of America. So not only do we build resources and community and networks within Western Pennsylvania for our members, but we've got national scope and reach as well. And a day doesn't go by where I'm not engaged or our staff are not engaged with those resources from a national perspective as well. And so that's kind of the larger benefit, and I'll get into that, of being in the unionized union construction industry, and that's the relationships, right? You're not doing this alone. Yes, it's a competitive marketplace, 100%, but you've got resources in your pocket that you can pull on and that you can build from, and that's an exciting part of what we do. So 1961 was the formation of the Construction Advancement Program, and that was put into the negotiated collective bargaining agreement. So that's a separate organization that we also run here at the MBA, and that allows us to work industry-wide in terms of promoting and improving the industry, and that's all part of those collectively bargained agreements. 1985, we expanded to include subcontractors, including groups like the Master Interior Contractors Association as well. And in 2009, we moved into the current headquarters here in Green Tree, and a building that we helped redesign to achieve Gold LEED certification. So we are here outside of Foster Plaza, if you're familiar with the area. Certainly when we get back to more in-person and guest meetings as we continue through this pandemic, welcome anybody to come over and talk with us. We're here as a resource. Additionally, as a resource, I'd like to mention, I think we've got two of our leaders from the MBA staff here today. I think Bob McCall, Director of Safety and Risk Management, is on the program this morning, and Eric Starkowitz, who's our Director of Industry Relations, is here with us as well. So I put up here a picture of, except it's not loading, there it goes. I put up a picture of an old stool, kind of some teal carpet. For me, as I was looking for a picture here, this reminded me of a stool at my grandmother's house when I was younger, and it had all three legs were attached, but it had one that was just a little bit off, and inadvertently everybody would fall off of it after they stopped paying attention. And so for me, that's kind of the point that I wanted to put up here, which is the tripartite engagement in union construction here, and Western Pennsylvania specifically, is key to this success, and it can be key to the success of your business as well. The three-legged stool only works when all three legs are strong and connected. And so if you look at the construction owners or the end users in our market, could be institutional clients like the University of Pittsburgh or Carnegie Mellon, UPMC, could be tech sectors, Argo AI, or could be Google. These owners play a critical role in what we do, and we really do try to build relationships there as well, because we're not looking to just be successful or for our members to be successful in one project, but to continue to lead the industry and build the region, which is our purpose. union signatory contractors represent that other leg, and our union craft labor partners represent that third leg. And again, we've got all represented here on the call today in the program. So I do think there's some real good information for you all to take away today. And the value is in the relationships, right? We achieve more together. From a high level standpoint, in terms of what it means to be signatory, there's a really short answer, and that is you sign into a labor agreement. But the difficult aspect is making sure that you understand what you're signing onto, what you're committing yourself to and your company, your business moving forward. The advantages are enormous. I mentioned the connectivity within the unionized construction industry, the opportunities that exist, whether they be a project that is 100% union, and there is funding aspects that do put those into the project agreements, certainly, or whether it's just simply the owner's preference that it is a union project, or if it's a prevailing wage project, right? There's other opportunities there where there's certainly an equal opportunity and a competitive landscape. But I think, whether you're signed on to an international agreement, a national agreement, a local agreement like ours, or a project labor agreement, they all encompass the same core elements, and that's that wages, benefits, and working conditions are all clearly laid out. So from a fringe benefit standpoint, this is probably one of the bigger unknowns and advantages to being a union contractor. It's an incredibly rich opportunity for your workforce, for the union members, and the fringe benefit plans that exist and that are jointly managed from labor and management, right? So, however, for a contractor, it does create this obligation, whether the benefit plans require payment on a monthly perspective or a quarterly perspective. When those benefit obligations are due, whether it be pension obligation or whether it be medical fund or a savings annuity type payment, those are due to the fund offices. And the fund offices and those jointly managed trusts represent and look after the interests of the participants, and they look after them diligently. So that's an element from a financing, from accessing new line or access to lines of credit and utilizing those lines of credit, where your business acumen and your skill set really needs to shine, because you don't want to get behind on fringe benefit obligations. It is a very quick way to go from being have a bright future ahead of you with a successful project opportunity to not being able to sustain your business through multiple projects in multiple years, right? I know Juan and Judy have put together great programs and other education and access to financing and lines of credit and relationships with bankers. Highly recommend you take advantage of all of those opportunities and work with them, because it is such a critical part of being a successful contractor in 2021. The other two elements here, and then I'll sort of move on and allow the others to share with you this morning, but would be related to safety training and support and workforce development. And from a safety training and support standpoint, this is number one or number two element that our members, our signatory contractors, look to our association for. Again, I mentioned Bob McCall on the call here today, but our safety training and safety support is head and shoulders above anything else in the industry. And it's critical, especially for a contractor that's starting out, because while you're trying to juggle all of those balls, safety is critical and it's important to you. It's going to be important to the projects you work on, but you may not have the resources or the talent to be able to have somebody dedicated to that. And that's where having the relationships within the industry and an association like ours can really help provide some of that backbone and support and introductions to others that might be able to help. From a workforce development standpoint, we participate in pre-apprenticeship programs and obviously the registered apprenticeship programs that I mentioned earlier. But I know DeWitt Walton with A. Philip Randolph will talk a little bit more about that. And Dave Plutt can certainly talk about it from the training side on the apprenticeship program. I would just mention, programs like the Introduction to the Construction Trades program that's housed under the Builders Guild organization. We're a big part of that. And it is a great pre-apprenticeship program that tries to build relationships into communities and creates an opportunity where, should an individual pass that pre-apprenticeship program, they get placement into a union. And that's an outstanding start into the union construction industry. So at this point, I do just want to thank our panel today, DeWitt Walton, who's participated in programs like this with RCI and DDRC before, Dave Plutt, training director at the Keystone Mountain Lakes Carpenter Training Fund, and Bill Brooks and Jason Markovich, business manager and leadership at Labor's local union 373. I appreciate each of you taking your time this morning here, and again, looking forward to the questions and answer session here. So I'm going to stop sharing now. Again, I'm the last one with slides to share, and I will turn it over to DeWitt Walton.
Thanks, Dave. I really appreciate you setting the stage for this conversation. To many of the attendees in this session, good morning. I know many of you on a personal basis, and it is a real opportunity for me to have an ongoing conversation. I know that in a couple of cases with attendees, we've had a direct conversation about how your individual business may benefit from being a signatory. And I know in one instance, you've shared with me some of the challenges that being a signatory causes in your particular business operation. So I know that there are a multitude of perspectives on this issue, and I really want to thank Juan and Judy for doing what they've been doing for such a long time and pulling this all together and making it all work. My history in this arena comes from being the program director of the Pittsburgh A. Philip Randolph Institute, and it's buoyed by a secondary role that I have as an Allegheny County councilman, and having that opportunity to be an advocate for increased diversity, equity, and inclusion for minority contractors from the county side. And so I think that we're at a unique position right now with the development of the Lower Hill, the airport project, and a project that the county executive just discussed over the last 3 weeks to a month about a hydro project that's going to be built at the Emsworth Dam that will generate all the power that we will use in county government over its entire operation here in Allegheny County. And that's going to be an incredible opportunity as it continues to move from consultation to design to construction and operation. So, and I also advocated and had and will continue to be an advocate that project also will be done under a project labor agreement, and if successful in getting that kind of designation, that means that the building trades will have all of that work as it moves forward. So let me say this: I see nothing but opportunity, and to become a signatory, in my opinion, creates a path forward for your business operation. It creates a path forward for workers who look like you, who have goals and aspirations like yourself to feed, house, clothe, and educate their family. It makes all the sense in the world that people of color, women, it's a real path forward, clear, distinct, defined. I have a long history of working with all of the building trades, whether it be the carpenters, whether it's the laborers, the operating engineers, the plumbers, the sheet metal workers, and clearly having discussions about making certain that there's opportunities for folks of color to become apprentices, moving to becoming journeymen. And in many of those crafts, particularly in the carpenters and the IBEW, there are courses to support those individuals becoming their own business owners, learning how to bid jobs, and connecting with organizations like Judy and Juan helps with the back office support. So I see nothing but an upside for small businesses to grow. There are some challenges that you're going to meet on the front side. Dave was very clear about what the expectations will be, what the requirements will be. There's no alternative to that. But again, to be able to work through and grow your business is incredibly invaluable. In terms of having workers, if you need quality, qualified, competent workers, being a signatory gives you instant access to that workforce. You as an employer, in the overwhelming majority of cases, can pick your own employees or retain your own employees of your liking who perform work that meets your standards and your preferences. It's advantageous to you. And again, the standards are the standards. Dave, his predecessor, Jason, and Bill Brooks, any of the crafts have standards that individuals must meet to become an apprentice. But once an individual meets those basic pathways, there's a clear opportunity for you to move forward and to build a future for you and your family. From the county perspective, the Department of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion has a project manager that, as part of the redesign of that department, that project manager is there to support entrepreneurs, small entrepreneurs, to help them work through many of the challenges that they face. And that department also works with Juan and Judy to ensure that there's a clear path to success and movement forward. A huge upside. And by doing that, you become available and part of the process that can compete for county work, because the county does tons of construction projects every year, ranging from large multi-million-dollar projects to several $100,000 projects, and your company may be eligible to compete for some of that work. There's a history of a great relationship between the A. Philip Randolph Institute, the building trades, and the Master Builders Association, because we are about creating pathways forward for minority businesses, and particularly African American businesses. And we want to support in every way possible that growth and that expansion. So I'm interested in hearing questions that individuals may have at later points. And we also do workforce development training here at the A. Philip Randolph Institute, and place a number of individuals on an annual basis into the building and construction trades apprenticeships on an annual basis, as well as in manufacturing and also in the emerging energy sector. So I'm glad to be part of this group, and I'm interested in conversation. So if I can add something or address a concern, I'm available. Thank you. And so with that, I'd like to introduce, am I doing Jason or Dave? Dave Plutt, I think it is, isn't it? Dave Plutt from the Carpenters, a good friend, a welcome ally. Dave? You're muted, Dave.
Sorry, I hate when I do that. I'm on so many Zoom meetings anymore. So good morning, everybody. Thanks for the introduction, DeWitt. And I'm, it's going to talk about training and some workforce development, but I'm going to kind of lead off with DeWitt mentioned about workforce development. Currently, we work with several workforce development boards right now. DeWitt, the A. Philip Randolph Institute is one of them. Intro to the Trades, to the Builders Guild. We work for some West Virginia women's workforce. Our training fund, it covers a large footprint. We're the Keystone Mountain Lakes Training Fund, but we're part of the Eastern Atlantic States Regional Council of Carpenters, which covers up to 8 states. So we have multiple training funds. The Pittsburgh Center covers Southwestern PA up to Erie. But the workforce development boards, we're working with a lot of underprivileged or underrepresented populations, minorities, women, veterans, dislocated workers. We do quite a bit of work with Southwest Building and Construction Partnerships, Partners for Work. And these programs are really great programs for these people in these situations or environments that get into our program. Working with some of these workforce development groups, the apprentices come into our program. They actually get funding through these workforce development groups to help fund some of the startup costs. Our training program, I'm not sure the knowledge that everybody on this call has about our program. We're a 4-year tuition-free apprenticeship program. And we offer 6 different crafts here at our training center in Pittsburgh. We are college accredited. For every apprentice that completes our program, they earn 42 college credits through CCAC, and that's tuition-free. Now, there are some startup costs, initiation fees into the union. We do require them to buy some books and supplies to get started into our, into our program. But after that, it is a tuition-free program. And the training doesn't end after 4 years. It continues on throughout the rest of their career as an apprentice and as a journey worker also. I mentioned it's a career. We don't consider this a job. It is a career. The investment that we have into these apprentices and our future, our contractors, they pay into our funds through contributions for every hour worked into our program. So we take it very seriously on our training. We're looking for the best qualified people getting into our program. When I say that, so we're looking for people with a desire, a passion to succeed and be successful. Some of the basic requirements just to get into our program is we do require high school diploma, GED, or an equivalent, 17 years of age to submit an application, 18 to go to work for insurance purposes. One of the key factors we don't, I think we're one of the only trades, is we do not require a driver's license to get into our program. Our international changed that a few years ago. We're looking to give people the opportunity who may not have the ability to get a driver's license early on in their career or their life. So we do offer, we don't require a driver's license to get into our program. And one of the key factors, we are a drug-free program. We follow the federal guidelines, and currently that's where our policy is. It is a great opportunity for any individual who wants to get into this program. And we work well with DeWitt Walton's group, again, trying to reach out to these underprivileged populations to try to get into our program. We have 6 crafts, as I mentioned earlier, from carpenters to pile drivers to millwrights, floor covers, heavy highway carpenters, and a mill cabinet. As someone mentioned earlier, that President Biden did announce the infrastructure bill, and it was a fantastic opportunity for us. It was from our training center here in Pittsburgh when he announced that. And the infrastructure bill would really support our programs, our heavy highway, our millwrights, they're industrial carpenters, our pile drivers. The opportunity is there. The future is looking great. for these individuals getting to our programs. But the opportunity is there for us. So, as DeWitt mentioned, I'm open for questions afterwards. I could go on and on about our program, but I know we have limited time, and I'll talk to Whit if I keep going. So I'm not going to do that. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Bill Brooks or Jason from the Laborers Union. If you go ahead and start yours. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dave. First I want to say thanks for having me. And William Brooks, he's with me. He's off camera, but I'd like to introduce myself. My name's Jason Markovich. I'm the president of Laborers Local 373. I'm sitting here with Billy Brooks, who we don't got enough time for all his titles, but he's the business manager of Local 373. He's the president of the Pittsburgh Regional Building Trades, and he sits on the board as a trustee to the Pennsylvania Building Trades and numerous other boards within the county. And I only say that because it's a testament to his dedication to represent the laborers in our region. Our local covers 4 counties, Allegheny, Fayette, Greene, and Washington. We belong to a district council that covers 33 counties throughout Western PA, including some public sector and heavy highway. I just wanted to touch on a few things. The workforce development and what you could expect with the relationship with the unions. There's a misconception, an outdated misconception, that there's an adversarial relationship between unions and contractors or developers, and it couldn't be further from the truth. Dave touched on it earlier. We all have the same goals, which is a successful, safe working environment, and we want every signatory contractor to succeed naturally, because that means our membership succeeds. When our membership succeeds, there's more opportunities for contractors and employers alike. So that's one of the things I wanted to get out of the way, because I know there's a little apprehension with contractors getting into signatory status, feeling as if they'd be cornered into a situation that's not beneficial to them. It couldn't be further from the truth. As mentioned by several of the other speakers today, one of the biggest benefits as a signatory contractor is that you have an hourly contribution on each employee, which gives them an opportunity for family sustaining wages, benefits, and health care that they can have some sense of security with moving forward. And we all work together to ensure that happens. The laborers have a diverse membership. Dave, you mentioned it yesterday. I didn't even know, and I said I didn't know because we knew our numbers when it came to minority participation were high, and we never had a problem with it. But I mean, Dave said that the laborers were reporting a 30% minority participation rate. So we're proud of that, obviously. And we do have as with all the trades, we do have a training center that addresses the changing needs of the industry. And as an employer, that's a benefit, because your employees can continually get training updated to address your needs for your specific jobs. And when it comes to manpower, you're not obligated to hold a certain amount of manpower. Your manpower will fluctuate based on the jobs you perform, the phase of the jobs, and we will be here to support that. And I'm probably a little short here, and it's only because everyone did such a fine job of covering all the other details that encompass being signatory. So we're here. I'm here for any questions, if you have any, with regards to the laborers or working relationship with union leadership and membership. And I'll hand it back over to Juan. I thank you for the opportunity to speak.
All right, thank you, Jason, for that presentation. So we just we save this time for questions and answer, and really start having an open and honest conversation we talked about this when we put the panel together, is to really understand the barriers and the misnomers that many women and people of color have thought about unions. And we mentioned this to the panel, and to really talk about that, we're always talking about the barriers. And one of the things that Dave D that we talked about early on, some of the challenges that people say becoming a signatory, that you get the bottom of the barrel workers. And so I want somebody on the panel to try to address those questions, because that's what a lot of the entrepreneurs of color and women hear, that they get the bottom of the barrel workers when they become into the union. So if someone could take that question there and answer that. And if anybody has any other questions, please put them in the chat. We're monitoring the chat for those questions, but I'll try to lead a discussion with the panels right now.
I'd love to take that one if I could.
Sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think you're the best one to answer that. For sure.
Yeah, I figured, but this is a reoccurring thought and maybe assumption, and it's extremely misdirected. Now, first of all, as a representative of a local, I'm not going to sit here and call anyone bottom of the barrel. You'll have varying degrees of skills, varying degrees of personalities, just like you would in any other aspect of employment. And that goes into the white collar world as well. So, I mean, naturally I'm biased. I'm going to defend the performance of the workers. However, you do have the right as an employer, becoming signatory with the union, to bring your workers aboard. You have workers, they're welcome to come aboard and be signed. I can speak for the laborers. If they're performing laborers work and they're laborers, they will become union members. You will have the same employees that you've had. Now they will have the opportunity to participate in the pension fund, health and welfare fund, and be covered under the collective bargaining agreement. With that being said, a lot of the challenges employers have when it comes to employees is not having a sufficient amount of work to continually employ a crew. So what happens is, if your work's fluctuating and the amount of work's fluctuating, and your crew goes from 6 guys or women that you really enjoy working with, and you feel that they're fulfilling your needs, and it goes down to 2, and then it comes back to 6 later on down the road, and you need 4 people. Those 4 people may have moved on. They have other opportunities. Now you're getting 4 new people that may not be as familiar with the work you're performing or how you want it performed. So there are different circumstances. And what I could say is the best pathway to keeping your crew together is securing the amount of work you have and continually being able to employ them. But your employees, as it stands now, are welcome to the laborers if they're laborers. But I hope that answered your question. I don't know if it didn't. Feel free. I'll elaborate.
No, yeah, that's good. I got a question from Deborah Knox, and she's asking, how do you know which unions to join? There are several, and so Deborah, if you might need to clarify, as a contractor, if you mean for a laborer or as a contractor. Can you clarify what that means by unmuting your mic? Debbie Knox, you're muted if you're speaking.
And if she can, I mean, we could certainly answer from both sides of it, I guess.
Okay.
As a contractor.
Contractor.
Yeah.
Sure. So I can feel that, but DeWitt or Dave or Jason, anybody really feel free to chime in here. I think it all depends on the type of work that you're going to be doing, right? What your contracting business or specialty is, and then what craft workers are applicable to that. So it really depends on the type of work that you're doing. I would think from a general construction standpoint, laborers, not to use the word baseline in any derogatory way at all, but as a baseline for construction work, a laborer and their jurisdiction, their skill set and scope would cover a lot of things. And so that might be one that would make sense initially. I can answer the question from signatory status for our members. And I would say that the majority have agreements with the laborers and the carpenters as probably the top two.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I may just call you separately to talk
Please
about
feel
it.
free. I know it flashed quickly, but my email was up before, and certainly I'll get a list from Judy after this, and we can connect. I'm happy to be a
I
resource.
know
for
master
anybody.
builders well.
Sure.
We will share a contact list with all our panel presenters, with everyone attending today.
Thank you, Dave. Anybody else have any questions in the chat? Or I'll lead on some more of the conversations that we've had as a group to talk about. Not only was that, and there aren't any fees, but if you could give an average amount of what people think that they would need to pay. Sometimes people are afraid of what are the dollar amounts that they would need to pay into the building funds or the fringe benefit funds. If anybody can give just what an average company of maybe what a 5 average person or firm would pay.
Yeah, so I can answer that, and then obviously feel free to jump in, anybody. But it adds, I think Jason had mentioned earlier, it's a per hour contribution. So the amount that you're contributing is going to be dependent upon two things. One, the agreement, the wage rate and fringe benefit allocation for the period of that contract. Some labor agreements could be short-term, could be a project, as I mentioned earlier. Some could be multiple year local agreements or national agreements. So the total package is negotiated, but then the individual union has the ability to allocate certain those dollars and cents as they need it. And some of that's directed and dictated by the fringe benefit funds. You might have a pension fund that's underfunded, so more needs to go into that. Or if healthcare costs continue to rise, more might go into that. So it really depends per agreement and then per craft. But there is across the board pension or retirement, a medical, there's a savings or an annuity type, another type of retirement benefit, and other crafts. Some other crafts have a couple of different allocations. Some even include a vacation fund as well.
Thank you for that. We got a question here from Tina Daniels. Is there ever an instance where the union just doesn't have the workers to supply needed labor for labor force a company needs for a contract they won?
I can kind of answer it on the apprentice side. And for the carpenters, currently we have over 1,400 apprentices in our system right now. And we always are going to man up our job sites on the carpenter's end of it. That's our goal, to supply help and employment for our contractors. That's why we're here in training, to make sure these apprentices continue their training. And a little bit about the wages. Each year there's 4-year apprenticeship, and the wages increase per year of apprenticeship with certain criteria has to be met. They have to have all their training completed, so much on the job hours, and their pay and benefits increase accordingly. But the carpenters, our goal is to make sure we man up for our contractors. Absolutely.
Right. Hey, Jason, just a question on here. And I know that can you elaborate a little bit more about if you're a non-union firm shop right now and you have good qualified workers and you want to enroll them in the unions and can you talk more about that so that their individuals that's with their companies are going through what is that process like? Okay,
so real quick before I address that, 1 second, as Dave said, I mean, every local's main goal, every craft is to man their jobs. I mean, that's a taboo topic to not be able to. So with the laborers, a lot of the advantage we have in doing so is we organize. We can pull as we see the work getting busier, we can pull a lot of skilled non-union workers into the union to be able to provide workers. So no, we haven't been in a situation where we couldn't provide laborers to signatory contractors. And as I said before, we have 33 counties we can pull from as well. So if our supply of manpower is getting low, and I don't mean manpower, but workers is getting low, we can pull from other areas. Now, as far as a contractor who wants to become signatory, who has a workforce already, again, I can't speak for other crafts. I can only speak for the laborers. If the work being done is the work of the laborer, and as Dave said in no derogatory way, I'm proud to be a laborer, proud to represent laborers. It's a very general skill set. A lot of the work there is general, and in my opinion, every contractor can comfortably sign with the laborer and provide some work during whatever phase they're doing with the labor. But with that being said, it's going to be more specific on what work's being done. If the labor's work is being performed and the contractor wants to become signatory with the laborers, the workers who are performing the labor's work within our jurisdiction will be signed up to our union and become members.
Yeah, and so I'll speak to that in another way, and that is if there is truly a gap in the available workforce and the demand, there are typically elements in an agreement that will allow for other trades or the contractor to be able to source workforce from other locations or disciplines and not negatively affect the relationship or that agreement, right? So there.
Go ahead, Dave. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. So anyway, so there are other circumstances where that may happen, but as Jason said, you know, the goal of each union is that they are there to not just provide, but to train and to qualify the workforce that they're going to be making available to their signatory contractors. I do the answer to the prior question about what does a fringe benefit contribution look like. I can get specific with some examples if that's helpful, but DeWitt, it sounds like you've got something you'd like to say.
Oh yeah, there was a point that I wanted to make relative to a portion of the question that Juan asked. If an employer had a company and he had some specific employees with specific skill sets that he wanted to move into that he wanted to retain. Jason addressed it relative to the laborers. And I think in many cases in the craft that most of the crafts have the ability to conduct a demonstrated ability test where they can measure and evaluate the particular skills of an employee to determine whether or not that employee could test out at a second or third or maybe a fourth year apprentice, and quite conceivably a journeyman potentially. So each craft has their own individual standards that they live by, so that the potential signatory has a mechanism where they don't have to necessarily fear not being able to retain those particular employees.
Thanks for that. Yeah.
I add one thing to that.
Go ahead, Jason.
And I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but it's important on our end with the laborers, and every contract's different as far as the manpower goes. We are able to solicit our own work, which allows the contractor to hire whoever they want as well. So they're not restricted to the laborers local 373 for manpower. If they wish to hire anyone that they wish into the labor, we'll sign them up into the union, but you know, they can hire from other sources too. So they're not restricted to just us for manpower. We're there to help, but they can employ who they wish. They can be signed up as laborers after that.
I think when we were doing the practice, I don't remember if we talked about this, and I don't know if we hit this point today, that when work slows down and they're a signatory shop, what happens then during like the off season? People go unemployed, and how can you talk about that a little bit more? Because people are always afraid for their organizations, for their companies, that in the construction downtime, how do the entrepreneurs continue to make funds if there's no work that's out there for the entrepreneur side? And now they're signatory. at this stage of the game. They're not that big like the big primes that can weather it and do other things, but how can smaller entrepreneurs survive in the downtime?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question, and that's something that we spoke to a little bit earlier. In that the significant benefit of being associated with a union and have a signatory relationship is you don't have to carry or feel the obligation to carry those individuals when you're in between projects, et cetera. Obviously, every contractor wants to be able to keep their people employed and help them support their own families, et cetera. But that's a real concern, Juan. And so the benefit of being able to work with trades. Again, some have a hiring hall format where they might dispatch you. Some trades solicit their own work. And so you may have that relationship with a few people or many people, and they know, hey, there's going to be a 3-4 week down period here or a 6 week down period, but then we're going to bring you back for this project once it ramps up. And that happens all the time. And that's a big benefit to the employer, not having to have the burden of carrying those individuals when they really financially can't be doing that and they need to be focusing elsewhere. It's certainly a decision, but it does help having that relationship and backbone.
Hey, is there by any chance, it's still on that while we're getting close to the end, is there any, do the unions have mentoring workshops for new signatory firms that they could have some mentoring opportunities with union reps and things like that?
Yeah, so I'll just answer from the association side of things. I mean, one of the areas that we've been working on going back before 2019, but that's when I started here, was how can we better support emerging contractors is what we were originally calling it. And that's transitioned with stakeholder meetings and task force work and a lot of work internally into a new hire that we're about to make, which I'm really excited about. And I had really hoped that we'd have that person, at least signed, if not, onboarded yet. But we are making a hire on a workforce development director that'll also focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and will be that helpful connector, building relationships, providing training opportunities. And so that's a big roundabout way to say, one, there's been mentorship opportunities in the past, different programs that have been tried. Some have worked better than others. But I do think that there's an opportunity and there's certainly a need for that. It's just about how does that get structured and how does that legally and truly benefit both sides. And I think there's an opportunity for that. I know, you have your Mentorship Monday programs that you do. And so again, I think there's an opportunity there. And I'm really excited about what we're going to be able to continue to do and really expand what we're going to do by bringing on a new leader that'll be able to focus in this area.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. We're looking forward to your new hire as well, Dave, Judy, and I, and the rest of the team at RCI. And I think some of our contractors, that'd be great for them to be able to have someone that they could talk to regarding that. So we have 5 minutes left, and I don't know if anybody has any questions in the chat. I see Judy threw some more information in there. We'll be back again on Thursday morning as well to continue that next part. I didn't print that agenda out, so I can't remember the name of it. I printed out today's agenda. But so if any of the panelists, if there's no more questions, any panelists got any closing remarks, and then I'll close out the workshop this morning.
Hey, Dave, would you do a quick announcement for Thursday?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Yeah, I appreciate everybody's participation today. DeWitt, Jason, Dave, thank you for sharing what you've done this morning with everybody. I think we've got some folks on the program this morning that'll be with us on Thursday on the panel. But the second part of this is really trying to create, again, that open and honest dialogue space where entrepreneurs, contractors who have either been on this journey and had organizations, businesses, or they are now, and to share their story, their experience, their perspective as a signatory contractor. Nobody can tell their story better than they can. And so the idea is we'll tee them up and get out of their way and allow them to share their experiences. So Thursday on the call schedule, we've got Gene Brown from Alliance Drywall Interiors. I believe Don Gunning from Gunning Inc., a mechanical contractor, will be on with us. Curtis Moorhead with Emerald Electric Services. Richard Taylor of Imbutech. Bill Taylor, I believe unrelated, currently with Century Mechanical, formerly of Nexus Construction, and Tara Connor, who is with Turner Construction and works closely with, not just from an MBA membership standpoint, but DVRC and RCI and some of the BizFit programming and their Turner Construction School of Management as well, our construction management school as well. So very excited about the panel we've got for Thursday. Hopefully everyone that's here today is able to join us on Thursday. And I think it's going to be really impactful and useful.
Also, I'd like to add, if everyone who's on the call today and you're returning on Thursday, I've been soliciting questions, and if you would please feel free to email me any questions that you would like asked on Thursday. Also, once again, we'll lead the discussion along with Dave, but I'm going to put my email in the chat.
Yes. Does any of the other panelists have anything that they would like to say?
Simply put, thank you for coming on board and exploring this possibility in so many ways. We need to build a bigger, broader, deeper infrastructure of minority businesses, because again, the way to improve the quality of life in the communities that we live and serve every day comes with growing wealth, wealth for your business, wealth for your employees. And so I'm really excited about the participation and the opportunities that are ahead of us. And if I can be of assistance in any way, please reach out to me. My email address is dwalton@Pittsburgh, spelled out PITTSBURGHAPRI.org. So, and Judy will share our contact information with everybody. So thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you. And yeah, just piggybacking as I close out on here, and glad that Tara will be on the call next week to hear more about the University of Pittsburgh, the chiller distribution plant, which is a signatory project, union project as well. And not only how to get, I hope that I'm planting the seed right now, not only how we get the minority construction trades involved, but how we get other minority professional services involved as well on other projects. And really talking about caterers and things like that, thinking way outside the box. This is our time for us to be bold and think and reimagine a new Pittsburgh, because one of the reasons we look at these things is to address some of those concerns that was recently issued out in the Pittsburgh Racial and Gender Equity Report. And those are the goals that we're trying to do here at Riverside, and partnering with members of the unions and the different trades, is to be able to say, okay, we want to help use the unions and signatories to build minority firms. We want firms, we want companies, but we want firms meaning that they're going to be here for a long time, and using that the way to grow your businesses, as we're identifying as RCI, is to truly make, as DeWitt said, building a pipeline of more entrepreneurs of color in this space. This is a huge space for Pittsburgh. It has always been a space in Pittsburgh, and let's figure out a way that we can build a better Black middle class by being able to offer living wages, health insurance, and I heard, I think it was Jason or somebody saying, and letting our people go on vacation. We need vacations. We don't always have to work. These are things that we need to be reinforced and know about. We need to create opportunities for women and build women entrepreneurs in this, as some of the recommendations out of this. And as we continue to build this program here, we want to build a pipeline of workers so that we can get them in there. Judy and I are both products of our parents, both products of union workers. My dad and Judy's dad are around the same age. My dad is 85 years old, will be 86 in May. And he retired from the unions, I believe, as a general laborer or something like that. I think that's what it is. And he's still receiving a pension. He's bought a house. He's been having a car. He's still living well. He's pretty healthy. So he's worked hard all his life, and he raised all his kids and helped us get through college. Although my mom was there as well. I got to give her some credit as well. But we are products of parents, and we need to figure out a way that we can use these positive analysis to challenge people in the community when we hear about these barriers and unions. Sure, they're dirty jobs. They're very dirty jobs, but they are great paying jobs. And just think, many people that you have that you could put in here, they don't need to have that college bill. My nephew is very smart, went to college, And and then we call him that millennial. But now that I know how much he's paying a month in in student loans, I can see why some of those kids still have to live at home, paying monthly loan fees up to $1,000, being layered for the next 15 years. Who can afford to do that as a young adult? But there's a way here that, as Dave Plutt said, these are free apprenticeship workshops except for the upfront cost. We can do that and help build the pipeline. And so some of the things that we're working on with RCI and the programming that we want to help the entrepreneurs is really talking about creating these lines of credit program. We're having serious conversations with 3 to 4 different major institutions who are listening to us to create these lines of credit programs so we can have a serious line of credit put in place for you so that you have the ability to pay any of those your monthly fees or funds or your allocations that you need to pay into the unions. Our goal is to make you successful by being able to create those. So we could say we don't have the funds to do it. Yes, we're going to put all these things in places. We're going to be doing workshops again. I know everybody keeps tired of me hearing this, but I am emailing CCAC for the estimating and bidding workshops that'll be held on Saturdays to give you some idea on what you need to do for estimating and bidding. We're also working very hard. We'll be reaching out to the primes all this week to do more insurance workshops, especially around the payment bonds, on what you need to have in place now so that when you bid on these projects, you have the ability to get those insurances and things sooner and to be able to know what those are so you can incorporate some of those costs, as we all know, into the bids. And so those are a few things we're working on. One other major one we're working on is really coming up with a building supplies program, being able to collectively have a buying power of minority firms so that we can make sure that our costs that we buy for supplies are reasonable so our bids aren't out of whack trying to bid against larger firms. So with that being said, I thank you all for attending, and I look forward to seeing you all on Thursday morning or any of the other Riverside Center for Innovation programs and our partners that we have workshops with as well. And as we end out with our typical creed, as we typically say at Riverside, practice safety first, practice safety second, practice safety third, and when in doubt, always go back to that first one. All right, well, we'll get started here. I know we got some people might have a hard stop at 9 like I do. And so welcome everybody to the second part of our union signatory. Today's session is the panel discussion featuring union signatory contractors. Hear what's involved and get your questions answered. I know that a lot of times we talk about it and there's some questions that you all want to know that we can't answer, but we decided to bring you some of the top DBE union signatory firms that are out here. And again, we have the panel of other folks MBA as well. And just to please note, we are recording this session again this morning. You'll be able to find that on the Riverside Center for Innovation's website whenever it's up and ready to go. And again, my name is Juan Garrett, Executive Director of Riverside Innovation. Riverside, as you know, as you know, is a small business incubator with our focus on working with disadvantaged entrepreneurs. We have our Signatory BizFit entrepreneurial training program focusing around construction firms. And so, we're really trying to push you all to get to that next level, to get to some of these folks that are on this panel, to get to that status that they are and hear their stories on why they did it and how they did it, and which makes sense. So with that being said, I'm going to introduce Dave D'Aquilente of the Master Builders Association, and he'll give a brief introduction of himself and of the panel. Thank you.
Good morning, Juan. Thank you for everybody that's joining us this morning. Appreciate those that were here on Tuesday and are back today to listen a little bit more. I appreciate the time. As Juan said, I'm Dave D'Aquilente with the Master Builders Association. Appreciate our staff support on the call this morning as well. I believe we've got Eric Starkowitz, our Director of Industry Relations, on the call. And thanks again to Judy and Juan for working with us over the last few months here, putting together this program. I am very excited about the panel that we've got today to talk about their experiences and their journey in union construction, and hopefully answer a lot of questions that you may have or have submitted already as we help everybody understand a little bit more about union construction and the industry here in Western Pennsylvania and what it might mean for your businesses moving forward. So I will be very brief, and that's all I really have to say. For myself, I'd love to introduce our panel at this point. We'll go alphabetically here. Gene Brown with Alliance Drywall Interiors. I should also note that Gene's a CAP trustee. The MBA has an organization, the Construction Advancement Program, Western Pennsylvania, and Gene serves as a trustee for us on that, so I appreciate your service there as well. Ms. Dawn Gunning of Gunning Mechanical is with us this morning as well. We've got Mr. Curtis Moorhead of Emerald Electric Services, Mr. Richard Taylor of Invutech, Mr. Bill Taylor, Century Mechanical, and Ms. Tara Connor with Turner Construction. I believe we've got everybody on the call. And we do. Good. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Gene Brown. Gene, if you wouldn't mind, give a little bit of an introduction, and if you could share your journey, your story with everyone on the call here, and your experience as a union contractor.
Sure. Good morning to everybody. Yes, I am Gene Brown. My company is called Alliance Drywall Interiors. It was started in 1997, but I go further back than that with unions. I was a union carpenter, still carry a card from, I got in 1977. And I worked for one of the larger interior companies back then, James Banda Incorporated. And that's how I got started in the carpenters. And when Banda went out of business, I had an opportunity to start my own business. And that's what I did. And of course, it was a union business. We run a small office. There's 3 people, including myself. And we run about 10 to 12 guys in the field. But my advantage to being union with that is when I need people, I can go to the unions. I'm signatory with carpenters, which is our main focus. That's our main drive trade. We have drywall finishers, laborers, and plasters. So I'm signatory to 4 different unions. And the great thing I think about that is whenever you need people, you can get qualified people. You don't have to worry about getting the different trades and going out and looking for them because they're there and they are trained. So in our business, we do up to interior jobs. We're up to about $700,000-800,000 jobs right now. It's kind of scaled down over the years. We used to do a couple bigger jobs. Our biggest job was the Pittsburgh Convention Center. We were teamed up with an interior company, Easley and Rivers, down there. And that kind of got us on the board. And I kind of went from there. And it's a great experience. I think the good things about the union, being a union contractor, is your force is your drive. They feed your company and they have great benefits. And right now, in the way society is, health benefits to me are the major thing. And with the unions, that's all packaged in their benefits. So they have health insurance, they have a pension plan, they have the health care, they have annuities, and every different union is set up differently, but everything flows through the union. So you don't have to worry about dealing with 7 or 8 different people getting insurances and annuities. And I think that's a great factor of being a union contractor. So it's worked out well for myself, especially being an MBE contractor. there's a few of us. When I first started, I think there was maybe 2 minority interior contractors in Western Pennsylvania. Now the number has picked up, but I like to consider my company as an interior company. Yes, I'm an MBE, but we do quality work. The unions can provide you with quality people. They have great training facilities. If anyone has ever seen the Carpenters training facility, it is state of the arts. I mean, it's state of the arts. There is one in Las Vegas that is, I mean, top state of the arts, but the one out in Pittsburgh is fantastic. So that's kind of my story. I mean, I've been a union guy, like I said, since '77, and it's helped me, it's helped my family, and I've met some really, really good people. I mean, I've been put on a couple boards, like Dave said. I'm a trustee on the CAP fund. I'm also a trustee to the Carpenters Pension Fund. I'm on a board for board of directors for the Pittsburgh Builders Exchange. So I've had a lot of opportunities, and I think it's a great way to go. I understand there are some good non-union companies, but I think with your experience in your company, I think if you try to get into the unions, I think that's a great way to advance your company. So that's kind of my story. Anybody would like to get in touch with me, you could get my phone number and we can go on and talk about different things. So I appreciate you letting me on to explain my story.
Thank you, Gene. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And for everyone that is certainly willing to do that, we can offer up contact information as a follow-up as well. I appreciate you offering that, Gene. Dawn, if you wouldn't mind, can you share with us a little bit about your story?
Sure. My name is Dawn Gunning. We own Gunning Mechanical. We started as Gunning Incorporated in 2005. And the backstory is that I was operating my father's construction company, which was also union. It was a mechanical contracting business in the power industry. And we sold that company in 2004. And that year I met my husband. He is a sheet metal worker by trade, started in high school, in trade school, and worked his way all the way through all the ranks, worked for a very large mechanical contractor in Pittsburgh. And so when we met, I had just come off selling the company, and I knew pretty much everything about operating a union construction business. We were signatory to 10 different trades, and we operated out of 7 states. So our payrolls were very complex. But I had that knowledge, and Mike has the expertise and the skill in the mechanical trade. So we started Gunning Incorporated in 2005 out of our home basement. We had 1 truck and we rented some space to store things. We started as a small residential HVAC company to get in the door and get some experience and get our feet wet. But quickly, within a year, we were doing smaller commercial projects and started hiring our first employees. And at that time, we were just signatory to the Sheet Metal Workers, Local 12. We have grown dramatically since then. In 2011, we purchased a facility and also purchased a competitor's fabrication shop and equipment. They wanted to get out of that line of work. So we purchased everything, put it all in our new facility, hired 3 full-time staff to do fabrication. And then we expanded again in 2015, where we started our piping division and service division. So now we are also signatory to the steam fitters 449 local. And Jean has said so much of what I was going to say, that the training is probably the greatest part of this. Is when we scale up, because we don't always have, multiple large jobs, but when we do, when we need to scale our staff, we have trained people ready to go, and we make a phone call and our jobs are up and running. So that's kind of my story, my background. We're doing very large projects at this point. So we kind of started doing $20,000 to $25,000 jobs, and now we're doing multi-million-dollar jobs. So it takes time. You can't have everything all at once. You build and build and build your companies. We could not have done it and didn't even consider doing it without being a union contractor, just because both Mike and I have that experience. I've never worked for a non-union contractor, so I can't speak to that. But anyway, it has helped us personally and professionally, and we're involved as well. I'm currently not on a board, but I have served in the past. Mike is very active with SMACNA, which is a sheet metal association contractors group, and he's the president of that contractors group. But he also is very involved with the union and negotiations and apprenticeship programs and training. So we're very heavily invested, and it's been, like I said, very good for us personally and professionally.
Thank you very much, Don. I appreciate that, and certainly, from our end, the engagement that both you and Jean talk about, and the participation and other things, not just running your business, is something that we see pretty widespread across the industry. There's a commitment to making sure that all angles of our business are covered and supported and stewarded into the future. So I think that's important to note as well.
Yes.
I will say we are going to, I'm going to ask Curtis Moorhead if you could share with us your experience and your story, and then we will take a brief break before we move into the second half of the panel, just so we can ask one question while DeWitt Walton is on the call. I know he's got a hard stop at 8:30, and so we will take a brief break for sort of one question and then move on to the rest of the panel. So Curtis, if you wouldn't mind, could you share your experiences and your story with us?
Oh, sure, absolutely. Just want to thank you all first for having me, to sit in and interject my short story about our great company. Our company's name is Emerald Electrical Services, LLC. We started back in 2009. It was at the beginning of a recession, and God bless us, we didn't know even exactly what we were going to do. My backstory is that I've been a union electrician since 1979. And it's, it was a great career choice for all those years. For the last 40 years, I have been working for wonderful companies. But 10 years ago in 2009, my wife Debbie actually owns our company. We decided to do it because I'm a union electrician, and it made all the sense in the world to do it that way. I know that there's a lot of non-union companies out there that are great companies, but I'm also an instructor down at local union number 5. We're Signatory with local union number 5, the electricians union. I wouldn't have been able to do it any other way, being an instructor. And it only made sense to me because I'm one of those people that, that trains this skilled labor that the unions represent. I really, value and appreciate the opportunity to be in the local. It's allowed for me to raise a family of 3 boys. we had also some grandchildren mixed up in the mix. And then once we got started with our business, it wasn't the easiest thing to get started. Once you get yourself involved in something like that, you've got to, it would be my suggestion that you have great mentors. I'm the guy that for all those years, early years, you know, and my wife and I went out and just did a lot of networking, sitting down and talking to people and trying to figure out, you know, who the players out in the industry were. You have to find those people out there that have done or are doing what you want to do. It made all the difference in the world, because you're going to make mistakes. You don't know, you know, every you know, little nuance that it takes to be on the union end of this thing, or even just, you know, not having a business for all those years, working for somebody, how to develop your own business. So be prepared for that. You have to, you know, you have to be prepared to make mistakes. And that's what we all, you know, I'm sure have experienced from time to time, like, you know, perhaps on a daily basis, but you learn how to deal with those little challenges on, you know, on a day-to-day basis. But, you know, just saying it's, if you want to scale your business, you have to stay in it for the long run. Our son is now our CFO, and I've got an exit strategy in place. This guy is you know, just incredible, and so is my wife and his wife, and we've got a niece that's involved. So, you know, it's going to make all the difference in the world. And we've teamed up with great companies like the Maceros, the Mascaros. You know, you got to learn how to work with everybody in the industry, I would also suggest. So that's the basis of our story. And if anybody's got any questions, you know, I'm also available for, you know, Q&A afterwards. So however we can do that. But it's been a great run. It's been exciting. If it hasn't been anything else, it's you know, it teaches you how to, you know, survive and you know, be able to build something that'll be legacy for, you know, for your family. So do it.
I appreciate that, Curtis. Thank you very much. So we did have a question that came in after the session on Tuesday, and as I mentioned, we've got DeWitt Walton here from the A. Philip Randolph Institute, Pittsburgh chapter, and only for the next few minutes. So the question, DeWitt, it's a bit of a two-parter here, and I'll field the second part of it, but really the first needs to go to you, and that is, who is or what is the Pittsburgh A. Philip Randolph Institute? And then the second piece is, what's the affiliation with the Master Builders Association, if any, and what do you offer? So I can certainly talk about how we have worked together and what we might be doing in the future, but you're the expert and the person to share with everyone on what exactly it is that you do and provide. DeWitt, you are on mute.
The Pittsburgh A. Philip Randolph Institute is a 501c3 located here in the city of Pittsburgh. And our mission is to create pathway to identify, recruit, and train men and women for pathways into the construction and building trades, into manufacturing, the emerging energy sector. And we just created a third platform into the healthcare industry. So while we are not an affiliate of the MBA, what our goals and objectives are is to build and ensure opportunities for family sustaining careers for minorities and women. We have relationships with most of the leadership in the construction and building trades. But on the other side of the coin, we have or are building relationships with developers, contractors, and we have influence with policymakers, which create additional opportunities for small, mid-sized, and aspiring companies to grow and build their business. So simply put, we're here to help, to solicit advice and counsel from business owners like yourself, aspiring business developers, and the like. So we want to be advocates to ensure that companies like yours get the kind of support and opportunities to grow your business across the spectrum and have as many opportunities to sustain yourself as possible.
Thank you, DeWitt. As he had mentioned regarding the connection and the partnership there, obviously the Master Builders Association has been engaged in similar efforts, right? Looking at what we can do from a workforce development standpoint through our partnership with the trades, our signatory trades, and as Gene had mentioned, through the various fringe benefit trust funds or training programs as well. And so I think there's an overlap there in what we do, also in support for other pre-apprenticeship workforce programs, similar to what DeWitt has with Breaking the Chains. From a Builders Guild standpoint, and that would be the introduction to the construction trades. So it's exciting to be partnering with organizations like A. Philip Randolph on ways that we can continue to engage and support entrepreneurs and contractors in the area, as well as look at what we can do in the future to help from a workforce standpoint as well. I hope that answers that question for whomever was on the call that had posed it. At this point, we'll get back into the panel and then we can open it up for more questions here in a few minutes. But I appreciate Gene, Dawn, and Curtis sharing their story, and would love to turn it over to Richard Taylor. If you can share with us a little bit about your experience and story, and appreciate the time today.
Great, thank you. Thank you for having me. As Dave said, my name is Richard Taylor. I'm CEO of Imputech. We are a Pittsburgh-based general construction and electrical construction firm. We do a lot of work in the federal market. We've been in business since 2003. So in the federal market, we do a lot of work as a general contractor for a wide variety of federal agencies. We self-perform electrical work. We originally were a non-union company. As we began to grow, and particularly as we started doing work around the country, we really felt that it was strategically important to become a union contractor for reasons that I'll go into more detail about as I talk. We're currently signatory with the IBEW, with the operators, and the laborers unions. What I will say about being a union contractor as an MBE firm, there are lots of pros, and the pros definitely outweigh the cons. But I'll just to be candid, I'll have to start with the cons, because it's a pretty big con for me. I knew that by becoming a union signatory, I was basically giving up on having a diverse workforce. And that's something that is personally important to me, and it's painful for me. I'll be honest, every week when I go through my payroll and I see, we pay very good wages to our workers. And I really would like to see, the dollars flowing out of our firms helping to support African-American families. And that's just not the case. And so, what I would say to those who are active in leadership in the union movement, their onus is really on them to address that to help attract more minority contractors to become signatory. But in terms of the pros, there are a number of pros. First of all, flexibility. Being able to draw on, and others have talked about this, draw on a trained, reliable workforce when you need it. And when you don't have a need to flex for a larger workforce, you don't have to carry that consistent overhead. So for example, we have a project going into construction later this month that, at the height of that project, we'll be pulling close to 60 union electricians. We would never be able to cover that level of overhead as a general matter, but we are able to do that because we can pull the workforce that we need. One of the things that was talked about in a session the other day that's related to that is making sure that you plan financially for meeting the obligations. So we're looking with that level of field payroll. Some weeks we'll be at over $200,000 in wages and benefits. And so, as a business owner, I have to make sure that, we have the credit facilities in place to make sure that we pay those obligations, because the last thing you want to do is not make payroll, not, honor the commitment that you have to the people who work for you. So, those folks work really hard. They put, their skill to work for you. They put themselves at risk because inherently construction is dangerous work. And so it's important to honor what they're giving to you. And so that's really important. The training is really critically important. The IBEW training facility here is recognized around the world. And we see a very high quality workforce consistently when we pull folks from the hall. And so that's really important. And I'll also say the work ethic of the employees that we pull from the unions is outstanding. Folks work really hard and they are focused on getting the job done and doing it well. And the other part of it is, to the extent that you find folks who aren't performing well or aren't working the way that you need to work, or aren't fitting into the team, you can move them out and bring someone else in. And so that flexibility is really important. And the other thing that I think is critically important for MBE firms is the access to broader opportunities. A lot of the major, long-term ongoing opportunities in the region are only available to union contractors. So being able to work for institutions, like the University of Pittsburgh, like UPMC, Allegheny Health Network, a lot of major corporate clients, you will not have the opportunity to do work for those institutions without being a union contractor. And so for all those reasons, I think it's really important to consider, and I strongly encourage firms to make that move if you're really looking to grow and scale your business.
Thank you, Richard. I appreciate that, and that's a great example of what we're trying to bring to the program both on Tuesday and today, and that's the honesty, all right, of what a challenge is for you and what that means, but weighing the business decisions that you've made and looking at challenging those leaders and us as an industry to try to improve, so that isn't the same challenge you face 5 years from now, 10 years from now, et cetera. Thank you. Bill Taylor, Mr. William Taylor. Century Mechanical, are you, there we are. Good morning.
Good morning. How's everyone? It's good to see everybody. You have a great panel here. I know Richard well. I know Dawn and her husband, Mike. Me and Mike work side by side out in the field together. Curtis, we work side by side. Excellent mechanics, excellent talent, excellent owners, very classic operations everyone is running here. So you picked a great panel here. And I'll finish with that. I am a steam fitter out of Local 449, active member right now. My story is a lot different than your other panelists because I own Nexus Construction. I started Nexus Construction in 2015, And we went out of business in late 2019. I want to just elaborate a little bit about what not to do versus all the success stories you hear from my fellow panelists that and I will say they are doing a wonderful job out there. They all will understand what I'm going to say is that as a minority company, you really have to be careful because there is a such thing as growing too fast. There is a huge need for minority contractors in Western Pennsylvania. Correct me if I'm wrong, Curtis, but I believe you are the only signatory, and maybe one other. Everybody on this panel are usually, and Gene, I forgot that I didn't want to leave you out, Gene. Gene was an incredible carpenter, still is, and excellent businessman. There aren't many of us out there, and the demand is very high on most of the projects out there, and they will solicit your work. They will award you the work. The biggest thing with MBEs are you're undercapitalized. You have no resources for money. And even though you get payment terms and things of that sort, being a union contractor, you have this thing called benefits. And if you are not on top of those benefits, if you don't stay on top of your benefits, let's just put it this way, you will get put out of business. I'm sitting here telling you as one of those people that you get behind on your benefits and you feel, well, okay, man, I've got $1 million, $2 million, $3 million worth of work coming in, but that's 90, 120 days away. Those benefits need to be paid every month, just like your payroll every week. Those guys don't get paid, they're not coming back. And then you're gonna have to deal with the unions. So there's a lot of things that I would love to cover because I can tell you how not to go out of business, but I only have 8 minutes. So I'll condense it. Unions are excellent. I am a union man. I've been a union man. My mom was a school teacher. My dad was in the United States Steel industry as a union man. I'm a blue collar Pittsburgh guy. As well as the depth of getting resources out of the union, you got to understand, the unions are exactly like colleges. We train our apprentices, we bring them out there. You may have the blessing of getting the top of that class, or you may get that guy who just, or woman that just made it through. That'll make the difference out there in the field for you. The unions have resources, there's no doubt about it. I use resources from all over the country, especially when I'm doing BIM work or I'm doing technical work. Some of the other cities and states have way farther advancement on technology. So you, as a union individual, as a union tradesman, and as a union contractor, you have resources to those other cities and states. Utilize that. You paying for it. But just understand that those guys out in the field will make or break you. As a small company that is undercapitalized out there, they will make or break you. You have to stay on top of your labor, or you will be sitting here like I am right now saying, and I'm not blaming the unions for putting me out of business. There's a combination of things that why Nexus Construction is not on the grid anymore. You grow too fast. And as much as I try to hold back and not grow fast, my relationships out here are excellent. And they thought they were helping me by giving me work. And it's like, hey man, slow down. I don't have the capital. You're buying that job before you ever get paid. So if you take on a $500,000 job, you need to have resources available for 250 of that, because you're not going to see 250 of that for months later. So you need to have those resources on the side to take on that type of work. So when you take on a project and get awarded a project, that's when the pain starts, because you have to capitalize that project long before you get paid. And sometimes you won't get paid. So you have to take that in consideration when you're in the union and you're in this commercial world and industrial world, depending on what your discipline is going to be. But back to the unions, because that seems as though that's what we're focusing on. You got, paying your benefits is super important. That has to be on the top of your list. You don't want to get behind on those, along with your workman's comp and your payroll taxes and everything else. Those things are very, very important. So from a business development standpoint, those things should be on the top of your list. There's a lot more that I can say and take, but I don't want to eat up a lot of the time. You have other panelists to talk, but anybody can feel free to reach out to me. And I'm here for you. I will help you in every way I can. I'll share my experiences, and definitely you're going to want to hear what you don't want to do.
Yeah, I appreciate you being conscientious of the time, but I've got a feeling that we're going to have some questions related to those lessons learned and your experiences. And again, I really appreciate the willingness to share and the honesty, because I think those are lessons that you can pay forward to help others. And so I really appreciate that. Our last panelist this morning will be Tara Connor with Turner Construction, and we've asked Tara, who has been with Turner Construction for a long time in this market, and certainly in other markets before here, but share your perspective in terms of where you see things now as it relates to practices and engagement with diverse contractors, maybe some Turner Construction specifics, if you will. I know we'll have some questions that may come your way as a general contractor here on the call that works with a lot of folks in this area. But if you could share with us a little bit about your journey and Turner Construction and where you are today, that would be great.
Thanks, Dave. Wow, this is a hard panel to go last on. The honesty and the transparency that everyone has shared has been, for me, tremendous. I'm sure everyone on the call is also very appreciative for what's been said so far. So I'm the procurement manager here for Turner in Pittsburgh, which means I negotiate and let every contract that Turner writes in Pittsburgh, West Virginia, up in Erie, the whole area out here. Turner's focus, which has been long overdue, toward diversity and inclusion within our own staff, as well as within our contracting, has increased tremendously over the last year. And the opportunities that are out there for DBE firms right now are great. Owners are requiring GCs to do the right thing. It's now a requirement. It's not a choice to do the right thing, it's a requirement. So for DBE firms, that's even more opportunities. What Turner and what I am focused on is providing the right opportunities to ensuring that you're successful. Turner subcontracts all of our work. We have very little work that we actually self-perform. So we're only as good as our subcontractors. So I need to set up successful contracts for every single award that I make. And that requires conversations and an understanding of the firms. If sometimes I will hire a DBE firm that I know for a contract that might be a little bit of a stretch for you, whether it's a financial stretch or a workforce stretch. But we set you up with guide rails to ensure your success, because putting you out of business in a bad spot, bad financial position, does me and Turner no good. And this applies to all GCs. Turner has the Turner School of Construction Management, which is a program where if you're a contractor that's looking to stretch yourself, a DBE firm can come in and join our school. We walk you through every facet of construction, teaching you all the different pieces you need to be successful. And then we provide you with the contacts for all of our department heads that you can reach out to at any point in time for a mentorship, for a phone call, for a cup of coffee, for I'm bidding this. Can you just look at this really quick? This contract scares me. Should I be worried? All those conversations, we try to be as open and transparent as we can with DBE firms, again, to make you successful, whether you're successful on a Turner project, Mascaro, PJ, we want you to be successful wherever you go, but we're here to support you in those endeavors. The guide rails we talk about are to make sure that you are going to be financially sound, and the recommendations could be operational, they could be financial. I mean, we cover all the aspects. Again, we have a large project right now that's out to bid for the University of Pittsburgh. And we are, as you said, actively looking for DBE firms. At the same time, I've always said that it's bad to be hungry, but it's worse to have indigestion. And we're going to be cognizant as we're talking to DBE firms. If our conversation, meaning the subcontractors in mind, show that maybe you have too much work right now, I'm not going to say you can't have the work. I'm going to say, have you thought about teaming with someone else? Have you thought about supplementing with another DBE firm or a non-DBE firm? We need to come up with some creative solutions so that you get work that's successful and that you're provided with good opportunities. And I don't want to talk too much more because I know you want to get into the questions. So I'm here. Dave will, I'm sure, and Judy and Juan will share my contact information if anybody wants to reach out. I mean, I'm always willing to help. And again, I really appreciate the honesty and the transparency of everyone that's been on this call.
And thank you all as well. This was a very good eye-opening conversation, and that's the whole intent of what this workshop was for, to be transparent, to really let folks know about being able to take this next step. And so I want to open up some questions here, and thank you all for telling your stories. These were great, and we have some questions already that were already provided from earlier, and so you hit some of those things, but one of the questions that we have out here is, I think is real quick, is when you're talking about Tara, and some of you all said joint ventures and teamings, do you need to team with a union signatory firm? Can you team with a non-union contractor?
So Dave, we talked a little bit about this as far as a typical conversation would be like a mill worker. Okay, so a millwork fab shop, when they fabricate millwork in their shop, that might be a non-union effort, but the installer would be a union signatory carpentry contractor. So when we buy millwork, sometimes we will buy the millwork from the fab shop that is non-union, but they are required to hire a union installer for on-site construction. So I very rarely would see, like in an electrical scenario where you would have a non-union electrician marry with a union electrician. I haven't seen it. I can't say it doesn't exist or has never happened, but I can tell you it's not your typical. I mean, I've been doing this for 20 years, and in that history, I have not seen something like that scenario. I have seen DBE firms, JV or team with non. Absolutely. The other way around. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, I think that answers the question, that it seems that if you're going to do a teaming with if you're a signatory, you need to team with another signatory. Just makes sense to do it. I just wanted to validate.
I think, yeah, Juan, if I can add to that, not that I'm speaking for the unions, all of the unions at all, right? But I do know that many of them are more inclined to work with you if you're a non-signatory contractor on a project agreement, if you're not yet at a place where you're willing to sign a full agreement, because it gives you an opportunity to start to build that relationship and see the value benefit. If you're looking at a project that does have a union requirement, you might have an opportunity to JV with somebody. You may want to have those conversations, or talk with some of us about how can you have those conversations around what it looks like to do that, because as Tara mentioned, it's typically generally unlikely that it's going to be a union non-union partnership opportunity there.
And on that same note, I think you kind of answered this, Tara, but as well, does every employee have to be a union, like the office administrative and support staff? Someone asked that question.
Dave, do you want to answer that?
Sure. Yeah, I'm fine to. No, the answer is no. I mean, I think field work, as most of our panelists have referenced, that's the signatory relationship. But from an office standpoint, Dawn, maybe do you want to share your perspective on this?
Sure, I'd be happy to. We have several different departments and divisions. All of our administrative office staff are non-union, and that includes estimators and project managers. We have our fabrication shop. They are all sheet metal workers. They are all union. We have our field technicians and installers. They are all union members, and as well as our service division, all union members.
One thing I would add to that, piggybacking on something that Jean mentioned about one of the benefits of being a union signatory is even though our office staff is non-union, we provide as a company the IBEW healthcare plan for our employees and their families at no cost to our employees, which, you know, from a competitive and retention perspective is really important. So being able to have consistency among our workforce so that none of our employees have, you know, better benefits than the other is important to us just from an internal equity perspective. But in terms of being able to recruit and retain talent, being able to offer the really outstanding healthcare plans that the unions have negotiated to our non-union employees is something that's a real plus.
Right. And leading into that, there is another follow-up question to that. Speaking of the cost, someone is asking if they had to budget and sign up for costs, what would one pay for per employee for somebody for the benefits in there? If you wouldn't mind any of the panelists saying what they pay in the unions for those health, even if you don't want to give us the exact amount of range. And I'm assuming that it's going to be different for each union as well.
Well, I can say for the IBEW healthcare plan, that plan for family is just under $1,500 a month per employee.
And okay,
And
that
if I can add to that too, just as an example, because the bargaining agreements, the way the wage and benefits are laid out, it's in a per hour contribution or a per hour allocation. So I can say that for the laborers, for example, where they currently are now, you'd be looking at a total package of a little over $40, and of that, you know, about 25% of that might be attributed to health and welfare. So probably maybe a little bit more than that, but it's again, it's a percentage of that. And I think to Richard's point, the equity and being able to offer that to non-union employees is certainly an advantage that you would have. And I would think that there's then some consistency in terms of the financial planning as well, knowing what your obligations are for your entire workforce as well. But sorry, Juan, go ahead. Looks like you had something.
No. That's probably what people are looking for when they think about this, the intimidation and things like that. So being able to know what one cost would be, and I believe I think someone mentioned, I can't remember who it was. It might have been Curtis because I wrote his name somewhere down there here. But included in that is very top of the line healthcare, pension, vision, annuities, which is key, dental, I'm assuming, vacation pays. These are all things that workers deserve and families deserve actually when we're paying them. So let's not shy away from that. And as Richard and some other folks had said, I think Curtis as well, how well it was for his family and succession planning and things like that. But it's also, I'm sure the workers appreciate that too, that they're able to have their families being really taken care of by that.
So, hey, Juan, I know we're running close on time here. I did have two questions that have been submitted that I'd really like to make sure we get out to the panel.
Yep.
The first one's going to go to Dawn and Tara, and it's around minority, but specifically women-owned businesses or female professionals, whether it be office administrative or whether it be field level. Can you talk about how the environment is today compared to maybe how it was? Obviously, I assume that you know, your feelings maybe we're not where we want to be, but can you give some real examples to people of what they might expect, you know, from either an ownership or you know, a field culture experience?
I can go first if you'd like. I would say that I found a lot more challenges when I started in the industry back in 1995 because it wasn't my line of work. My father was a tradesman. He was a Boilermaker, and he had started a company in 1993. And there was one bad job and things were not going well. And the person who was handling his finances was not paying correctly union packages, not paying workers' compensation properly to the proper states. It goes on and on. So I got in because my parents wanted someone in the family to look out for their finances. So I think as a female coming into the construction industry in the 90s, I did have a lot of challenges, and I basically had to prove myself. So I learned everything that I could learn. I fixed all the mistakes, and I got really good at doing union payroll, state payroll, taxes, workers' compensation, and all of that. But it was a challenge. And fast forward to when we started Gunning Incorporated in 2005, it is a world of difference in 20 years. So I don't feel that I have to prove myself or feel alienated in a typically man's world. I will say that we do encourage females and minorities to get into the trades. We believe wholeheartedly that it is a great income, a great way to make a living, great for families, everything that everybody has said. The challenges is getting that word out and getting people to want to come into the trades, females and minorities.
Thank you. Kara?
Well said, Dawn. I mean, I echo everything she said. I started my journey as a project engineer on a out of the ground school in Queens, New York, in a not very good neighborhood with very difficult. I was the only female on site at all architects. I was the only female in every meeting and every day of my life there. And here we are today, and we have SVPs at Turner that are women. I mean, there's women everywhere. I used to say that I only work with men, and I can no longer say that now. Is it fair and equal now? No. Is it better than it was? Yes. Same thing with, I feel, minorities right now. When I walk out on a job site, if I see a woman tradeswoman, if you want to see who I favor, it will be her. If I see a minority tradesman, you see who I favor, it will be him. I'm biased that way, and that's okay. You know what I mean? Because I know the struggles I went through, and I'm aligning those struggles with them. Now, are there non-minority and non-women that have those struggles as well? I would never take that away from them. I just naturally see that, and I identify with that. And I just promote whatever I can to help them in their journey. But I mean, you see, I mean, I'd like to see, you know, Dawn and I are here, and people hear us when we speak, so.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. That's great to know. And to be totally transparent and self-aware of what those biases are and know how you operate and how you view. And it's great that you're able to articulate that and be honest about that. We are right up against it. The last question I wanted to get to was one that I think came up quite a few times. And if it's all right, Bill, I'd like to give this one to you, since you said you're not the only one on the call, obviously, but you are a proud current active member of the union. Can you tell the folks attending here today, what does the process look like? What is the timeline for you when you decide to become a signatory contractor to when you are a signatory contractor?
Did you, was that to me?
Yes.
Oh, from the time, repeat the question real quick, please.
So the question is, if you decide you want to become a signatory contractor, what does that timeline look like? You know, is it as easy as going to sign the agreement? And are there any credentials requirements, bonding, et cetera? I know some of that varies per trade, but I figured you might be able to give a perspective here and an answer.
Yes, well, for the steam fitters and the plumbers, which is the company, the unions I was signatory to, it was a matter of just signing an agreement with them. When it comes to signing agreements, it's very, very important to read your documents. Take those documents home, read those documents, because there's always underlying things, and every one of these contractors sitting here understand exactly what I'm saying, you know. So as far as signatory to the union, it's a matter of signing the agreement. Being a tradesman, I was very familiar with it. If you're not familiar with the trades, it's basically an agreement book that you sign. And they're going to ask you to get bonding so that when you do get behind on your union dues, and as a minority contractor, it's going to happen, because even the advantage businesses out there get behind in their dues. Probably everybody sitting on this panel right now owes dues. They may be current 30-day, they may be behind 60. There are some contractors out there that do 10, 15, $20 million a year, and they're 6 months behind, but when you get to that point, because you took the bonding out, the union will contact your bonding company and get some money from the bonding company, so the unions will ask you to do that. Because of my relationships, they waived that, just because I knew I didn't have the capital up front. So not to go into too much more detail, but that's basically to get signatory. That's all that's required. Bonding and signing an agreement.
I appreciate that. I think, I answered the other day, indicating that it is a signature. And as you said, you really have to understand what you're signing off on, what you're agreeing to. It's not just wages and benefits, it's the working conditions, working terms, and understanding what those obligations are. So thank you for sharing that. I mentioned in the chat.
Hey Dave, can I interrupt one thing? As a tradesman growing up in the trade and starting from day one as an apprentice, coming up through and some of the trades business managers and presidents of unions are not going to like my comment, but as a new business, especially as a disadvantaged business, you have every right to go to whichever discipline you are and ask, what are these guys required to know? And it's important that you understand when you're paying $70 an hour, because that's what you're going to be paying. You're going to bid jobs at 70, 79, 80. These are real numbers. When you're paying that kind of money, you're going to want to know, okay, when that guy comes out of the hall, he's on my payroll. What is he required to know? I'm going to leave it right there.
Sure. I appreciate that. I think there's been a couple lessons that I've taken away from this, and one is, as I shared in the chat, 60 minutes was not enough time for the depth of the panel that we have. So I appreciate that. Hopefully we can work with you all again on future programming, because I think there's a lot of knowledge and a lot of wisdom that can be shared with everybody here today. So thank you, Juan. I'll turn it back over to you, and appreciate that.
I agree. I really appreciate the openness that the panel discussed. You all were wonderful and incredible in your journeys, and I can't wait to get to know some of you a lot closer than what I do today. And really appreciate this. And this is the first step that we need to try to increase disadvantaged businesses into those unions. And we will be recording this if anybody else wants to see this. So it will be on our website, and we need to send this out to many people. People need to hear this information here as well. And I think Judy wants to say something.
Yes, I'm sorry. There was a question that I think we have a couple of electrical contractors on, and there was a question on the list in regards to the IBW as far as being a union signatory. I don't know. I don't have the list in front of me. I
think that it just says that's the one you have to sign through for the electrician.
That was the question. I think Curtis, maybe somebody can answer.
I think Richard and Curtis both said it was the IBE Local 5. Yeah, they
Yep.
said.
And I'm not an IBW5 member, but I would say it also depends on where your business is in the region, right? Because there are other locals in this area. I know 712's out of Beaver. So it does a little bit depend on that, but Curtis or Richard, if you have anything to.
Yeah, if I can say, one of my thoughts is that they're very discretionary about who they let become signatory. I mean, it was mentioned that that you could just sign, but I think over the last 10 years or so, there's been a lot of people that wanted to become union electrical contractors, but knowing the management down there, they're a little more discriminating than, I mean, you really have to have your ducks in a row before they let you sign up. And I think like guys like Richard and I, we had already I had kind of built my business based on the longevity that I had been in the union, and I made a lot of contacts, and they believed that I would be successful. So they let my wife sign and become signatory. based on that strength. And Richard had a beautiful business already established. So, you know, they see that, they look at that, and then, you know, I'm not discouraging anyone, because, you know, any condition is possible, but, you know, understand that they are a little more discretionary down at local union number 5. So.
Yeah, I appreciate that clarification. What I was saying is when you decide and you can sign, then technically you're signed to that agreement. There are steps, as you mentioned, as Bill mentioned, things that you've got to go through, whatever those requirements are, and they do vary per union. So I certainly don't want to shortchange that. But there are, once you sign that agreement, there's no other steps after that. You are a signatory contractor, and all of those terms and conditions come along with that.
Yep. True enough.
Well,
Can I add one thing? I think, you know, I'd be willing to participate in something else as well. But I think there might be a need for a preliminary kind of planning meeting prior to even considering being a union signatory contractor. For example, you know, do you have a business plan? Have you made contact with a CPA and an attorney? And what kind of structure of corporation are you going to have? Like those kind of things, you know, are kind of the basis of having a business. And I think entrepreneurs need that kind of help as well to then get started, to then become a union contractor. So, you know, I'm happy to participate, but I think, you know, this could be expanded in a way to help people get started.
So Dawn, at Riverside and Diversity Business Resource Center, we do have BizFit training, entrepreneurial training in tiers: 3 for new startups, 2 for intermediate, and 1 for established. And then we have a mentoring group. So, and we have partnered with various primes who participate in our workshops and sessions. Matter of fact, we started in January with our current tier 2 BizFit group, and we have about 13 individuals who are current business owners, and some of them are on the call today as well. And we've done and covered everything from bidding and estimating, submitting mock bids, you know, accounting, insurance, bonding, you know, like we do go through all of these. We meet once a week, and we started January 6th, and our class will graduate on April 21st. And everyone has stuck in there. And so things like this is what we would want to bring. And there's always room for more conversation. And, you know, I think, Tara, maybe we should talk about, you know, partnering on some other things, and definitely the MBA, you know, being involved. We appreciate that. And
yeah, that Dawn, to your point, and Judy's, that's one of the things that we've been talking about over the last few months, is how we can better engage and, again, take all of the variety of these efforts and conversations that are happening and make sure that they're all aware, in the loop, and, you know, focused to have maximum benefit. Because I think there are a lot of folks in the region that aren't aware of what DVRC and RCI are doing, let alone what we can all collectively, I think, add to it and help support. And that involves especially connections to the unions, because they're often getting the calls before others are about interest in starting a business. And so if we can have those channels and resources connected, I think there's opportunity there. So thank you.
Great.
Yeah, I think collaboration is key, and, you know, moving forward and not reinventing the wheel, and see where we can all, you know, work together for the betterment of our entrepreneurs and our MWDBEs who are looking at, you know, growing, maybe becoming union signatory, and just, you know, advancing their business. Okay. Well, with that being said, I know we ran a little bit over, but this was a great conversation. Definitely appreciate all of our panelists. As I said in the chat, we did this on Tuesday. Everyone who attended, we sent out, you know, an email in the outline so that people can reach back out. And Dave, he gets the list of the attendees. So if anyone, you know, is interested, you can reach out, you know, to me or Dave if you want that as well. And we just look forward to future endeavors.